Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd. And it's time for a review of the new Metallica record, Hardwired to Self-Destruct. Thrash metal legends Metallica are back with a new record. James Hetfield and the gang have delivered 77 minutes of new material on this thing on the standard edition. It is a double disc album that actually had some pretty reputable teaser tracks. Songs like Hardwired and Atlas Rise. I mean, tracks that, you know, they're not exactly Ride the Lightning, but they are some of the best material Metallica has released in years and show that the band is starting to get back in touch with what made them so good in the first place. Something the band lost sight of during their regrettable reinvention during the Load and Reload era. And then the deterioration of Metallica's appeal continued on Saint Anger and Death Magnetic, two of the worst produced Metallica albums to date. But Hardwired is definitely an improvement, and one that has been seeing some pretty positive reviews across the board. At least positive for Metallica. It is pretty trendy to hate on Metallica, but I think this album was bound to receive some positive reviews no matter what, based simply on the fact that this is not Lulu, which unfortunately will most likely go down as one of the most hated albums in rock history. Not really because of the quality of its content. I think the album isn't usually critiqued on that, in my opinion. I like some elements of Lulu, but it was a project that was bound to fail because, one, the last thing Metallica fans want to hear is some burnt-out rock poet rattling off these sexual and esoteric diatribes. And the last thing Lou Reed fans want to hear is the kind of metal that sounds like it should be booming out of the back of a pickup truck. Just two worlds that never should have collided, but somehow the stars aligned and the rest is history. So in a way, all Metallica had to do here was just not come out with another Lulu. But I think they surpassed at least that expectation. So in a way, all Metallica had to do here was just not come out with another Lulu. But I think they surpassed that expectation with a set of songs that throw it back to the good old days. And unfortunately, I don't mean the 80s good old days, more like the early 90s, like Black Album era Metallica. Very solid, but also very commercial. The band is once again dishing out these kind of mid-paced, groovy, heavy thrash riffs that are very catchy, very anthemic. They're also bringing the kind of lyricism that showcase a bit of cynicism when it comes to the human condition. Metallica, of course, is talking about war on this record, man's tendency toward violence, power, and death. The song Confusion even touches down on PTSD and the mental scars that some soldiers suffer after coming home from war. I also like that song's epic, harmonious guitar layering quite a bit. But that's on the second disc. As far as the first disc, the start of this album is concerned, it is very strong. Again, those teaser cuts I mentioned earlier, mwah, mwah, mwah. And the song Moth Into the Flame isn't really that bad of a high-octane moment, considering that this is the third act of Metallica's career. Though the song Dream No More sort of sounds like a regrettable return to the Load era with its kind of funky, groovy guitar riffs, which are topped with some really odd vocal harmonies that sound like they were pulled straight out of the Alice in Chains playbook. And the song Halo on Fire, while it's not bad, I really like the tune, I really like the ballad at the core of the song, especially how it kicks off. It sort of reminds me of one of the darker moments off of the Black album, something I was hoping to hear a return of, but quickly the song just kind of transitions into the same kind of mid-pace thrash riffs that you can hear throughout much of this record. And that's the thing, while this album does in a lot of ways feel like a throwback to the Black album, those sort of dark, moody ballads where the tunes were just excellent and made for some of Metallica's best, most memorable tracks just are not here, unfortunately, which would have been nice because that would have provided a little bit of variety in the track listing here, variety that unfortunately the second disc of this thing does not really bring. For sure, Confusion is great, and the very explosive closer, Spit Out the Bone, is one of the fastest and most intense moments on the record. But Man Unkind, Here Comes Revenge, and Murder One sort of fail to really make their case as essential tracks in the track listing here. Especially with lyrics like, here comes revenge, just for you, revenge, you can't undo, revenge, it's killing me, revenge, set me through. Oh, and Aces Wild, Aces High, all the aces, aces till you die. And then Am I Savage brings that same kind of funky, groovy, thrash guitar riffing that made mid to late 90s Metallica so intolerable. You know, it's a decent Metallica album. Again, some of the band's best material in years, but it is a very bloated record in my opinion. A lot of tracks that didn't really need to be here because they were either just deja vu, borrowing heavily from Metallica's older material, or they just felt redundant within the track listing itself on this thing. If Load and Reload had been part of a trilogy which this album was completing, this record would have been titled Overload. Still though, there are elements generally about this record that I can praise, and that is that in some ways this record does feel like a bit of a return to form for Metallica. The production generally is pretty good. The performances are decent. There are some highlights in terms of writing. There are a couple moments here and there where it feels like Metallica is making their compositions a little more dynamic with more guitar layering, more vocal layering to make things a little more melodic and harmonious, though it's not like they do that so often that it feels like they're really kind of pushing forward and experimenting and really changing their sound or doing something different, doing something exciting. This is very much like a meat and potatoes kind of Metallica album in many ways. And while that may not sound exciting, it's at least good to hear Metallica doing themselves justice after so many years. I'm feeling a decent to strong 6 on this record. Transition. Have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best. You're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe. And please don't cry. Just leave an angry comment if you disagree with this review. All sorts of other things next to my head over here, subscription, other videos of album reviews I think you might dig, and official website, guys. Hope you're doing well. Eat some fruits and veggies. Stay hydrated forever.